What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? The D-backs end the first half of the season strong. They've been the best team in baseball since June 29th. So let's break down the numbers.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait, reduce your tax debt, and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we'll be talking about the D-backs' incredible finish to the first half of the season. We'll be breaking it down by the numbers, how the D-backs are the best team in baseball since June 29th. We'll look at the offensive stats, the pitching stats, and so much more on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. And by the way, thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. All right, let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks now and discuss the D-backs' impressive finish to the first half of the season. They weren't able to complete the sweep of the Toronto Blue Jays, but it's okay. They still did way better than what we expected during this 13-game gauntlet, because we said, looking at the schedule entering July, it was going to be potentially the toughest stretch on the schedule for the D-backs all season. We said, from the beginning of July until the All-Star break, it might be the make or break stretch in the D-back schedule that's going to determine the rest of their season. Going against the Dodgers, the Padres, the Braves, and Blue Jays wasn't going to be four easy series. The Dodgers lead the NL West. The Padres were ahead of you at the time in the NL West standings in the wildcard race. The Braves, we know, are one of the best teams in the National League. And the Blue Jays are worse than the D-backs by record, but I still think they are supremely talented, at least on paper. So it was not an easy four series to go through until the All-Star break. And if you struggled in those four series, you might have been done this season. You might have been sellers at the trade deadline. And instead, the D-backs stepped up in a big way. I said they could go 7-6 during that 13-game stretch. That would be more than enough to set them up in the second half of the season. And the D-backs did way better than that. I mean, they finished 8-5, but in terms of the vibe during that stretch, the D-backs felt way better than an 8-5 stretch, because they played some really impressive baseball during that 13-game stretch. And sadly, they weren't able to complete the sweep against the Blue Jays, but even the finale had some pretty high moments in that one that we'll get to later in the podcast. I definitely think this little stretch that the D-backs have been on the last couple weeks has definitely renewed some confidence in this D-backs team. And now you look ahead to the second half of the season and you're like, okay, maybe this D-backs team can go on a run, because everything that they've done since June 29th suggests that this D-backs team is good. All the expectations that we had for Arizona entering the season are finally starting to be realized. They've struggled all year. There's been a lot of lows. They have not reached expectation levels, but all of a sudden, everything that they've done since June 29th has been really, really impressive. And this series against the Blue Jays had just been a microcosm of everything they've done over the last couple of weeks. You got scoring early in this series. You got clutch hitting in this series. You got chaos. You got defense. You got pitching. You got everything that has worked since June 29th. You got in this series against the Toronto Blue Jays. You look at game number one. The D-backs were the first team to score in that game. They also scored late, scoring in the 8th inning, scoring in the 9th inning. Geraldo Perdomo, forgot who he told. I think it was Justin Martinez. He was like, listen, If I go out there with an opportunity to hit a sac fly, I'm going to win us the game. That's exactly what Domo did. Sacrifice fly in the ninth inning, ripped it, and was able to win the D-backs the game in that finale to start off the series. Also in that game, you had a great Ryan Nelson start, who has been performing really well recently. 7 innings, 3 earned runs for Ryan Nelson, another quality start. All of a sudden, he's starting to look like a real pitcher. You got some chaos in that game, a couple steals from Carroll, Marte. We know about their speed on the bases overall now that Thomas is back. We got McCarthy. Like, the D-backs are just creating havoc on the bases once again. They were patient in game number 1, 9 walks drawn. Look at game number 2. The D-backs scored first in that game, and then they never stopped scoring. Corbin Carroll set a franchise record for RBIs by a leadoff hitter. He also had his second multi-home run game with 2 home runs in game number 2. And it is something that we desperately need for Carroll, because as the D-back superstar, reigning rookie of the year, top 5 in MVP voting, Carroll has been such a disappointment this year for the D-backs. And we've always said on this podcast, the D-backs are not going to reach their ceiling without their most dynamic player playing like their most dynamic player. And Corbin Carroll needed a strong finish to the year, and this Toronto series might have inspired a little bit more confidence, hopefully, in Corbin Carroll. Give him a little positivity, because we love the power that he displayed in game 2. Opposite field home run to the right side of the field as well. Like, he was spraying the ball all over, and he did it late in the game. Love to see that. Also, Gilbert Diaz continues to look good. Whenever he runs into adversity, he finds a way to escape it, can touch 98, 99 miles per hour on the radar gun. Love Diaz and think he has some legit talent to be a potential starter down the line in this D-backs rotation, potentially right now with the way Monty's pitching and the injuries that we have. I think we're going to roll with Diaz post All-Star break until the rest of the rotation comes back. Then Eugenio Suarez also was incredible in that game. Home run, offensively was really good, made some insane defensive plays. Perdomo's been making insane defensive plays as well. I think the defense has been really good during the last couple of weeks, and then this series against Toronto as well. Then you look at game number 3. You had an awesome moment by the D-backs. You had an awesome moment by the answer backs in the Toronto finale, as the D-backs were down 7-0, but were able to complete the comeback. Unfortunately, they didn't get the win, but to be down 7-0 and then score 7 runs in 1 inning was really incredible. Obviously, Zach Gallen was the starting pitcher who put the D-backs in the hole. That's a big issue that we'll talk about on a podcast later this week when we discuss things that we need to see improve in the second half of the season. Zach Gallen will definitely be on that list. All of a sudden, he's been struggling in his most recent starts, and that is not good for the D-backs' future. But the rest of the team right now is cooking. Perfect end to the first half. And now the D-backs are more than set up to make a run in the second half of the season. When looking at the schedule post All-Star break for the rest of July, it's looking very nice for the D-backs. You got Chicago to start off 3-game series, 3-game series against Kansas City, 3 games against the Pirates, and then 3 games against the Nationals. Those are the rest of your series to end July. And then your first series to start August against the Pirates once again. Like, seriously, this gauntlet before the All-Star break was the toughest stretch, I believe, for the D-backs for the entire season, and they got through it with flying colors. And so I feel very confident that the D-backs can come out in the second half and make a little run. But to do that, they're going to need to continue to do what they've done since June 29th, and we'll break down those numbers in segment number 2. But hey, if you're looking to place any wagers on the MLB All-Star game, then I suggest you check out FanDuel Sportsbook, because I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to fanduel.com and start making the most out of your summer. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. Give me the D-backs money line. Give me the over on runs. And when Brandon Pfaadt is on the mound, give me the over on innings. When that hits, it brings a big smile to my face. And if you want a big smile on your face, I suggest checking out FanDuel, official sports band partner of Major League Baseball. And also, if you need help correctly filing taxes, then I suggest Tax Network USA, because here on Locked On Diamondbacks, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon and be sure to mention Locked On Diamondbacks at checkout and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about the numbers. What has gone right for the D-backs offensively since June 29th? Because I don't know if you've heard, the D-backs are not arguably, they are the best team in the National League since June 29th. You look at winning percentage, the D-backs are number one, and that's not the only thing. This D-backs offense has been absolutely cooking over the last couple weeks. They've been scoring early. We know they're the best team in baseball. We know they're number one in baseball, I should say, in terms of scoring in the first inning. And that's what they've continued to do since June 29th. It's not always the first inning, but maybe it's the second inning. Maybe it's just scoring first in the ball game. The D-backs have continued to score early, especially maybe it's not the Corbin Carrolls, but at times it's been maybe a Gabriel Moreno batting top three in the lineup. Kenta Marte continues to produce at the top of the lineup. Maybe it's a Grichuk. Maybe it's a Jock Peterson. Maybe it's a Lourdes Gurriel. Like there's always someone contributing at the top of the lineup that helps the D-backs score runs early. And they've been able to do that since June 29th. The D-backs also late in clutch scoring. Remember in the first couple months of the season, this D-backs team, we said after the seventh inning, they just do not score runs. It was such a problem that we had for such a long time. You look at the numbers in June 29th, the D-backs are one of the better teams in baseball in terms of late game scoring. You've seen it repeatedly against the Dodgers, against the Padres, against the Braves, against the Blue Jays. You've seen the D-backs 8th inning, 9th inning, walk-offs, tie it up late. The D-backs have done everything in terms of late and clutch, high leverage scoring recently. How about the small ball offense? We know the D-backs, that has been their calling card, creating chaos, right? That's something that they've been able to do. Where Geraldo Perdomo back, we know he's a sacrifice king, and he's been doing that, laying down bunts. Guys like Jake McCarthy playing small ball, he's laying down bunts for base hits. He's getting on base as well. The D-backs still have that part of their game. It doesn't always have to be one thing or another. The D-backs have so many different ways to kill you. And now recently they've been able to add power into the mix. That was an area that was really non-existent for them last year. All of a sudden over the last couple of weeks, the power has been back. The speed has been back too, right? Creating chaos on the bases was the D-backs calling card last year. And they did that so much with speed. Due to injury with Thomas and Domo, we haven't seen as much speed this season, but now that those guys are back, you can see the impact their legs are making on the game. And right now, the D-backs, since June 29th, the best offense in the National League, because the D-backs, number one, and these are stats entering the finale, I will say, against the Toronto Blue Jays. But entering the finale against the Blue Jays, D-backs since June 29th, number one in runs scored in the National League. You look at average, D-backs, number one in the National League. OBP, D-backs, number one. Slugging percentage, D-backs, number two. WRC plus, D-backs, number one. Home runs, D-backs tied for second. Stolen bases, probably would want this to be a little bit higher, but D-backs fifth over since June 29th. That's really impressive number. D-backs number one in walk percentage and second lowest strikeout rate in the National League as well since June 29th. The numbers as a team are absolutely phenomenal offensively. And of course, that means the player stats also have to be pretty good because you go by WRC plus during that time. Christian Walker, 222 WRC plus. Eugenio Suarez, 192. Moreno, 171. And remember, 100 WRC plus is considered average. So these guys are considered superstars based off the WRC plus that they have since June 29th. Marte, 143. Peterson, 140. McCarthy, 109, Domo, 107, even a Corbin Carroll, who has not been that good since June 29th, only 212 average, a 276 OBP, but he does have a 462 slugging. That's why his WRC plus is 102 since June 29th. He's considered an above average player over the last couple weeks, and he does lead the team in runs scored since June 29th. This offense has been really good, and it's because most of these D-backs players have been really good since June 29th. The only guys that have been really struggling is like a Gurriel, a Grichuk, a Thomas, and a Newman. Outside of that, most of this lineup has been absolutely cooking over the last couple weeks, and you can see it throughout the whole team. Eugenio Suarez has stepped up in a big way. This guy has struggled so much this season, but like I just said, third in WRC plus in June 29th. He has a 646 slugging, a 313 batting average. Like this guy all of a sudden is absolutely crushing it for the D-backs. Second in RBIs since June 29th on this D-backs team. Like up and down the lineup, this D-backs team offensively, so many guys are producing. So many guys are stepping up to the plate, whether it's runners in scoring position, high leverage moments, or just using your legs to create chaos. Like we're seeing so many things offensively that the D-backs are doing and doing right now that we didn't see early in the season, right? Eugenio struggled for so long. Lourdes Gurriel struggled for so long. Carroll struggled for so long. It felt like only Marte and Walker were the only positive pieces in this lineup. Even a guy like Gabriel Moreno, we were so frustrated with him for most of the season, but he's been really good. He's batting 343 since June 29th. 439 OBP, 514 slugging. And again, these numbers don't count this series finale. So many guys have absolutely stepped up and caught fire over the last couple weeks. And you could just see it in the offensive performances against the Dodgers, the Padres, the Braves, the Blue Jays. Outside the Blue Jays, like those other three teams are some of the best offenses in Major League Baseball, and the D-backs were just straight up better than all of them over the last couple weeks. They scored more than them. They went against them head to head and outscored them. Like this D-backs team right now offensively is on a roll. If they can keep this offense up going to the second half of the season, like the rest of the teams better watch out. But it's not just their offense that has been really good, it has also been their pitching, and we'll break that down in segment number 3. But hey, if you're looking to do America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, then you're looking to hop on Prize Picks, because with over 5 million active members, Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. Let's get back to the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and let's discuss the pitching since June 29th, because it's very easy to gush over the offense, because I think the offense has been the most pronounced part from this D-back stretch that you can look at and say that area has really changed, because the clutch games, the chaos, like I think it's very pronounced what the offense is doing. Eugenio Suarez, all of a sudden being a good player, is very pronounced. He was the most hated D-back player for a very long time throughout this season. I called for his job. Everyone covering this team has probably called for his job entering the month of July. Like, I think everyone was off of Eugenio. After Blaze Alexander got optioned, when Alec Thomas came back, we were like, what are we doing? How is Blaze Alexander being sent down, but Eugenio Suarez being kept on the roster? We were getting mad at Torey Lovello. We were like, your commitment to guys who are not good. You continue to do this. We saw it at the Jace Peterson. Like, what are you doing, Torey Lovello? But this ended up being a situation where sticking with your player ended up being right, because all of a sudden Eugenio Suarez has turned around his season and he looked phenomenal. But it's not just Eugenio, because like I said, the offense is the most pronounced part when you see it turn around. But the pitching quietly has been really, really good for the D-backs during this recent stretch of games. And what's been the weirdest part is that it's not the guys that you would expect. The Zach Allens, the Paul Sewalds, the guys that were considered pillars in the closing role and the number one option in your rotation, those guys have not been performing well since June 29th. Those guys have actually sucked recently for the D-backs. They have not been playing well. They have not been pitching well for the D-backs. Those guys have actually put D-backs in more holes than have helped them dug out of holes, if that makes sense at all, since June 29th. And so it's been the guys on the margins who are actually really stepping up, guys in the rotation who are stepping up with injuries, the margin dudes in the bullpen who you wouldn't really expect, the guys that we didn't expect in the bullpen entering the season to be good. Like, it's those kind of players from the pitching staff that have really stepped up throughout the last couple of weeks, and it's been really, really impressive to see. And when you go and filter the stats, the pitching stats for the D-backs since June 29th, I mean, it's not as elite as the offensive stats, but still very good stuff. The D-backs pitching since June 29th, fourth in ERA with a 3.31 ERA. I mean, I think you'll take that, no doubt about it. In terms of pitching WAR, D-backs second in the National League. They are number 2 in terms of home runs per 9 inning. They second fewest or second lowest home runs per 9 inning in the National League, behind only the Pittsburgh Pirates in June 29th. D-backs second lowest walks per 9 in the National League since June 29th. So you'd love to see that. D-backs do not give up walks. They're not giving up home runs. They're not allowing easy runs to score. If you want to score against the D-backs, they're making you work for it right now, which is something that you have to be super excited to see right now if you're a D-backs fan, because we know with the injuries in this rotation, the up and down nature of the bullpen, it's good to see a 2-week stretch where the D-backs pitching staff is one of the better pitching staffs in Major League Baseball and in the National League. And the numbers definitely support that. These guys have been pitching very well since June 29th, and you cannot look at the pitchers as the issue for this D-backs team entering the second half of the season. The issue right now for this pitching staff is the guys who are supposed to be really good, the guys that you had a lot of confidence in entering the season, the Gallons and the Sewalds. Those guys haven't been good enough since June 29th. Gallen, 6 earned runs today after already having a 4.11 ERA since June 29th. Got to be better, Zach Gallen. Paul Sewald, since June 29th, 7 earned runs over his last 5.2 innings pitched. And again, that doesn't count the finale against the Toronto Blue Jays. And those guys have absolutely struggled. But you look at the rest of the pitching staff since June 29th. And again, this doesn't count the Toronto series finale. Kevin Ginkel, 0 ERA. Brandon Pfaadt, 3 starts, 16.1 innings pitched, only 2 earned runs. That's a 1.1 ERA for Pfaadt. Yulber Diaz, 12 innings pitched, 2 earned runs over 2 starts. Thiago Vieira, 5.1 innings pitched, 1 earned run. That's a 1.69 ERA. He's been really good for the D-backs since being picked up. 7 strikeouts during that time, can throw 100. Vieira is a very tantalizing talent if the D-backs can whip him into form. Justin Martinez, 9.1 innings pitched, 2 earned runs for a 1.93 ERA with 10 strikeouts since June 29th. Ryan Nelson, 18.2 innings pitched, 5 earned runs, 2.41 ERA over 2 starts, 3 games for Ryan Nelson. Ryan Thompson, 6.1 innings pitched, 2 earned runs for a 2.84 ERA. And then Bryce Jarvis, 6.1 innings pitched, 2 runs, 2.84 ERA. And again, those stats don't count the finale, but just goes to show you how many guys in the pitching staff have stepped up since June 29th. And it's not the guys that you expect. How about all the guys in the lineup stepping up since June 29th? And again, it's not the guys you would expect. It's the guys like Eugenio Suarez turning around his season finally. And so when you look at this D-backs team right now over the last couple of weeks, you're getting complete team effort. Offense is cooking. Pitching is coming around. Defense continues to be arguably the best unit in the National League. And right now, this D-backs team as a whole playing really good baseball, their best baseball all season long, and we can only hope going to the All-Star break, coming out the break, the D-backs can continue their recent trends. And if they can do that, no doubt in my mind, they can make a very strong run in the second half of the season. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news, coverage, and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. No says.